This episode is sponsored by Fresh Coat, Paint Care, and Rust-Oleum.
Today's episode, we're going to do something a little different. We've had a lot of requests from listeners about a top 5 book list. And so I'm going to go through and fulfill that request today and chat through our top 5 favorite books for small business owners. Now, the first thing I want to kind of go through is I'm going to provide the top 5 list. We'll do a quick overview of each book and some key takeaways out of it. We don't want to spoil the whole book because then what's the point in reading it, right? But to just kind of give you some Scooby snacks on what that book can do for you, what you can expect to take away from it. But before I get into that, I got to share a little bit about why books have become such an important part of my life. When I was 20 years old and kind of had my first mentor, was getting my feet wet in the painting industry and running a business with that. And he told me, he's like, hey, there's this book called 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. Now, it doesn't make our top 5 list, but I'd put it top 10, so it's shortly thereafter. And I think it took me probably a whole year to read that book because I wasn't really interested in reading. Like, it was one of those things that felt forced on me. I was the person that said after I graduated from college that I was never going to open another book again ever in my life because reading just wasn't a huge thing for me. I remember being younger and reading like Harry Potter books and different things like that for like entertainment. But as far as like self-growth and personal development, it just wasn't really a huge interest to me at the time. And so he was like, hey, we're going to read this together as a team. And so I think I drug my feet. It took me a year to read it. I definitely faked my way through it. There's probably some cliff notes in there and then just enough to have the conversation, right? And so that was kind of like what got my feet wet with reading and personal development books. And I'll never forget, like, as we started going through this, the book's very well laid out. John does a great job in the book, and it's 21 chapters, basically. Each chapter is like 5 to 7 pages, so I'm almost embarrassed that it took me an entire year to read the whole book. But it basically, each one is a law of leadership, right? Like something that he lives by. And I was very much ingrained in leadership when I worked with student painters and just what my role was as being the general manager of St. Louis and in the Missouri region. And so, it was kind of like eye-opening. I started taking some things out of it. I started seeing like changes in me. And I'm like, you can get all this out of reading, right? Because to me, reading books is really nothing more than just like having a mentor, right? I've never personally met John Maxwell, but I feel like he's been able to have an influence on my life through his 3 or 4 books that I've read over the years. And so I think that's a really cool aspect about reading is you can get insight from a lot of people that you would pay a lot of money to have a one-on-one coaching session with.
To watch the full episode, download Overdrive, now available on the App Store and Google Play.